Nothing shows raw talent combined with years of hard work like a successful manga series. While I like to speedrun 60 chapters a day, there are extremely talented manga artists and assistants putting in a grueling amount of work to get their chapters out on the shelves. And let's just say that process is quite a lot of work, as many successful serializations go through months and sometimes years of hiatuses due to many reasons, the most glaring being the health of the people working on them. But when a manga has been going on for so long without a break, it's easy for fans to become complacent and in a way dehumanize the people that work to get their chapters on the shelves. And that makes sense because to become a manga artist, you have to be in the top echelon in terms of natural talent as well as work ethic, to the point that it's almost incomprehensible to the average human to understand what that type of work feels like. And through that, people have sometimes rightfully labeled these mangakas as prodigies and natural talents that are 1 in a million, sometimes a billion. And when you think of someone like Eiichiro Oda, who has consistently put out a chapter a week for almost 24 years, that assumption is quite true. They can do nothing wrong, and they're just far superior to anyone else in what they do. Right? Recently, My Hero Academia's editor did a very interesting interview about the author Kohei Horikoshi that caught my eye. He said about Horikoshi, if you look at it from the outside, without a doubt the word talent is overwhelming. Horikoshi doesn't have much confidence regarding this subject. He seems to think that he's being elevated in a strange way. I believe that it's important to tell Horikoshi directly that objectively speaking, his manga is visually amazing and interesting. Even though sales have been exploding and the series has become more and more popular, sometimes Horikoshi still thinks that something is not right. However, the series is just simply exciting. I don't forcibly give it my all to raise his motivation. Just as another editor said previously, we've all become his fans. I think this is kind of wholesome, an editor just hyping up his mangaka about his work. But I also think that this is incredibly insightful and in a way humanizes the people working behind these hugely successful manga. And for Horikoshi, who is one of the most revered illustrators in the industry, says a lot about his ideals and values as a creative individual. But why does he think this way? He is one of the most successful manga artists of all time at this point, and has a hugely successful series that's reached millions of people across the world. So why is it that he lacks confidence in his work? I mean, the talent is clearly there, right? Well, I'm not going to answer that question because I don't know him personally, but I think a part of the answer can be found by trying to examine his career before My Hero Academia, a career that highlights many struggles and failures until he would eventually hit gold. Now, while doing my research, I found it incredibly difficult to find much on Horikoshi's earlier career, other than a few one-shots here and there. Notably a one-shot called My Hero, released in 2008. Now, for some reason, I couldn't find the actual English translation of this one-shot because every time I googled it, some random manga called My Hero Academia kept popping up. But here's a quick synopsis. Enter a world where powered folks are publicly recognized as heroes, fighting against twisted monsters and keeping the city streets safe. The main protagonist of this story is a 25-year-old named Jack Midoriya, one of the few non-powered people living in this world. Wary, anemic, but full of determination, Jack makes a living as a sales associate for Akashi Hero Support, a company that offers gadgets for heroes to use. Despite nearly everything about him making people put his dream to be a hero down, he secretly tries to moonlight as a vigilante, using the tools from his job as his own and becoming a hero in his own way. I don't know why, but this sounds incredibly familiar. Oh right, yes, this is pretty much the rough draft of what would become My Hero Academia. For the next few years of his career, he would be assistant to a few mangas as well as write a few one-shots of his own until 2010, where his first serialization for Shonen Jump would be released, and it was called Omagadoki Zoo. Omagadoki Zoo is a story of a high school girl named Hana who finds work at an isolated and run-down zoo that never gets any customers. The place is run by a man who was turned into a rabbit by a spirit and will only turn back to normal if his zoo becomes the most popular one in the world. Because of this curse, he has also somehow gained magical powers, which he uses to turn all the zoo animals into a little bit beastly humans during close time. Sadly, this series was cancelled only 10 months after its release, which is a huge blow to any aspiring manga artist. However, the series was able to get a legit conclusion to it, which isn't the case for his next series. His next serialization, Barrage, is the story of a shonen named Astro, a street urchin who meets someone that looks exactly like him, and that person is like the Prince of all Saiyans or something, and then he dies immediately after. So immediately after that, Astro takes his place as the Prince of all Saiyans and must save the world or something. I don't know, it's kind of weird, and I guess it didn't stick with audiences too well because the series was also cancelled after 16 chapters due to low readership. Now, I'm not a full-blown expert on the manga industry, but to be cancelled twice in the span of 2 years after pouring in a lot of effort to draw these series must be a pretty tough pill to swallow. I mean, his art isn't bad or anything, it's wonderful and it's very distinct and it's extremely visually pleasing. It's just his stories, no one cared, and as a creative that must have been pretty devastating. But it seems that even after 2 failed serializations, Shonen Jump's editors were still willing to give him a chance, which is quite interesting. Even though his potential had not been realized, someone at Shonen Jump believed in him, even though he probably didn't believe in himself, and that's all it took for the creation of My Hero Academia. Personally, I find this to be quite surprising because of how brutal Shonen Jump has been in the past with their manga artists. Even the most well-established series and mangaka are not completely safe from being axed, and to have multiple cancellations and still have the trust of the editorial staff means that they saw the potential from the start. Regardless, for Horikoshi, this may just be another case of imposter syndrome, where one believes they're not as competent as others perceive them to be. And I don't want to sound disrespectful in saying this, but I find it quite comforting seeing one of the best illustrators and most successful storytellers in the world also feel this way, even after running a successful series for such a long time and keeping that relevancy. I've always considered these reclusive artists like Horikoshi and other mangaka that barely show their face and only their work to be very enigmatic and otherworldly. There are not many pictures of Horikoshi online, and some manga artists don't even have pictures of themselves or even gender. Everything about their personality, looks, and quirks is left up to interpretation to the viewer, and it leaves a distance between the author and the reader. They kind of remind me of artists from before our time, because there isn't much we know about these people other than their art that survived hundreds of years. And I kind of feel the same way about these manga artists, which makes it incredibly easy to dehumanize them for better or for worse. So for any aspiring artist or creative that is struggling to accept or appreciate their own work, you're not alone. This may be a light anecdote that everyone feels the blues, even the most talented and hardworking. Reading that interview definitely has made me appreciate the art of making a manga, and I'm now more grateful when a new chapter comes out every week of my favorite manga. Or when it doesn't. It seems like a cruel joke when I'm making a video about the process of making a manga that one of the greatest mangakas of all time would pass away. Rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. You will forever be known as one of the greatest manga artists of all time, and we're all grateful to have lived in the same timeline as you and enjoy your beautiful series. Thank you.